one of the things that strikes me about BrewDog is you moved at relentless pace, but then how did you temper that down with making sure you're going in the right direction? Do you know what I mean?
We didn't.
You didn't?
We absolutely didn't. So speed, with the acceptance of 20% of the time we're going to be doing completely the wrong thing in the wrong direction, but we're going to change that fast. So we're going to spend the minimal amount of time on strategy, on planning, on hypothesizing. And so many companies get so bogged down in that. Just get something to the customer, see what the customer thinks, like make your decisions based on like real world behavior of customers. And like we were always like so accepting the fact like, hey, we're going to be wrong sometimes. Let's be wrong quickly, and let's be wrong based on not what we think, but what the customer thinks. And let's pivot hard and use that as a learning opportunity to do something even better based on actual customers and what actually happens. So like if you move quickly, you're not going to get everything right. But here's the thing, if you move slow, you're going to make about the same amount of mistakes as well than if you move fast. And at least if you move fast, you can make that mistake and you can have it fixed. And you can have the fix in market and working before the slow companies even launch the thing that's probably going to be wrong anyway.
It's almost like the customer's direct feedback is the other side of the barbell.
It is 100% the other side of the barbell. And like that is the most valuable thing in the planet. Like customer is God, is king, is queen, is master of the universe. Every time a customer spends even a penny of their hard-earned money on our beers, it is a gift from God, and we need to treat it accordingly. It's a privilege that they've decided to spend their money on what we do. And in one of my kind of crazier spells, I used to have a scarecrow with a BrewDog t-shirt sitting around the table of our management meetings, which represented the customer, because I want the customer to be seen and be represented at those meetings. And often we'd be discussing a thing and I just point at the customer and keep shaking my head because what we were doing wasn't customer centric, wasn't customer focused.
Is there an example of that where you've gone like at a relentless pace, and that is kind of, right-hand side of the barbell, and then you've got customers said some piece of feedback, and then you've course corrected?
Oh, so many examples, like so many times. So we had a big hypothesis back in 2018 that to grow our business, we needed to penetrate more into the mainstream. And we had this beer concept called Indie, which was a lot more accessible than the kind of other beers that we made. A mistake in hindsight, but we kind of watered down the concept a little bit. We went so big in the launch for it. We had international distribution, with UK distribution, with supermarket distribution, and our community, as soon as they tasted it, were like, what the fuck is this? This is not what we want. So like very quickly had to pivot, we had to replace it. But like we've launched beers globally that have like flopped, and that's fine, that happens, and just like fix it and kind of replace it quickly. From a business perspective, a lot of the biggest mistakes that I made was we took on some private equity money. And I think if I could like change some things back in the journey, it would be to have made less alterations to how we do things based on having more capital in the business, because we'd always been on a shoestring budget. We'd always been bootstrapped. And all of a sudden, if you're sitting there with 100 million in the bank account, you think, well, I need to use this money. I need to do something with it, as opposed to, so like for a period of time, now we weren't as tight, we weren't as disciplined, we weren't as diligent with spend. And I mistakenly thought the only way to get our company to the next level was to hire this expensive, fancy, blue chip management team. So very expensive people come in from Ritvic, Diageo, Coca-Cola, all these companies.
God. That's almost another barbell, isn't it? It's almost like the balance of, on the right-hand side, you need expertise, but then you almost need that scrappy challenger mindset. This is what I interviewed the founder of Innocent, Adam Ballon, last week. And he said their Innocence curve was they'd started with loads of bright generalists. Yeah. And then you balance on the left-hand side of the barbell, balance that out with meaningful specifics, I think he said. But like, so how, that's another tension. How did you kind of swim between those two things?
We didn't swim. We quickly pivoted and course corrected. So it just didn't work at all. The people that we took in didn't understand our culture, our passion, weren't able to work at the speed that we were working at, weren't able to kind of gel with our team, just wanted to take in loads of people. And I think the key thing in business is you're going to make mistakes, recognize their mistakes quickly, fix those mistakes quickly, as opposed to just letting them kind of linger, because the more you let them linger, the kind of more damage it does to the vision and kind of what you're trying to build. So all of those people I let go within 6 months of hiring them. It was a very expensive exercise. And then in the aftermath of that, I put in place what I call the BrewDog salary cap. So nobody could join our business and be paid more than 7 times what the entry level position was paid. So that meant we simply had to develop our talent, our leaders in-house. So that meant people were coming up in leadership positions who'd been with the company for a few years, had kind of grown their careers with the company, that knew kind of how we saw things, how we do things, what we believed in, kind of what our philosophy was. So for us, that was a key thing. So we made a massive mistake. It was an expensive mistake. And I think when you make a mistake, you've got to feel the pain of that mistake. Like as an entrepreneur, as a leader, it should hurt. And like your mistakes should hurt. I think Ray Dalio says like pain plus reflection equals progress. So you've got to like physically like feel that pain to like unlock the level of thinking you need, and you've got to put something in place to make the company, to make what you're doing better going forward. So that salary cap was amazing. And look at our senior team just now. We've got so many members of the senior team who've kind of come up through the ranks, and then they're sitting at that top table knowing exactly how we do things as a company and having that kind of ingrained in their DNA, which is far more effective than parachuting in all your leaders from these external companies.
Yeah, again, another barbell is Seneca, pure action, pure reflection. And I think, so go into I think the deeper the wound, the bigger the learnings. Like if we go a little bit deeper into those wounds from that expensive exercise, other than like, I think on the top surface level, if we're going to peel away the onion, right? Surface level shit is don't hire corporate people from Britvic. They don't get the challenger brand mindset. Let's peel back the onion a little bit more on this. Like what were some of the other learnings you got if we go really deep into that wound about that period? And I get the salary cap, and I think it's a genius idea, but what else did you learn in that?
Don't change 70% of your management team at one point in time. And also, and it's something I use every day when I'm hiring, I think by far the most important quality for any entrepreneur, for any team member in a kind of growing challenger business is tenacity, is resilience. And my dad, who spent 7 years with working in the North Atlantic, always used to say to me, James, if everything's going well, it's easy for everyone to look like a star. It's only when it's 2:00 in the morning on the 7th of January, when it's an absolute storm, when everything that possibly could go wrong is going wrong, that's when you see what someone's made of. It's only when things are like really bad, you see someone's kind of real character, you see kind of how resilient, how tenacious they are. And I wish I could find a way to test for this. I wish I could find a way to kind of evaluate kind of resilience and tenacity. And at the moment, all I've got is like, would I want to be standing next to this person at 2:00 in the morning in an North Atlantic storm with everything going wrong? And I still use that test. And almost kind of going through the business journey, I was almost kind of grateful when we encountered really difficult things, because when things were difficult, I could see so clearly what my key team members were made of. When everything's going well, you can hide, you can bluff, you can bullshit a little bit and stuff. So like challenges, another reason to be grateful for them is you see like, who do you want to go to war with? Who do you want to have next to you when everything's going wrong in a North Atlantic fishing boat at kind of 2:00 in the morning? And it turns out I didn't want to be next to any of those expensive people I took in the North Atlantic fishing boat at 2 in the morning. I wanted to be next to the people who come up through the ranks, who knew the company, who knew our values, and knew who we like to do things.
In terms of the word war, I think the Nike guy says business is war without bullets. I love that. There was like an epoch in time when 2011, when Camden Town, there's like a whole plethora of brands. What was your approach? And I think I've read somewhere like I think you have like a test for how you spend your marketing, where it's like, if someone else could do this, we wouldn't do it. And the other one is like, does this 10x something? Yeah, I love that. And I listened to a podcast where you talk that. So maybe detail that first. But then how did you apply that when against kind of Camden, against the other brands who did their own thing as well, but you've created your own? I think what's so interesting about craft beer as a category is there are these big players that didn't mold into this sort of blandemic of brands where they all look the fucking same. How did you approach that?
Well, firstly, on the kind of 10x and marketing test, we've got 2 tests that we applied to everything we did from a marketing perspective from day one. First one is, if I spend £1, $1 on this thing, is it going to give me a 10x return versus a Heineken, a Budweiser, a Guinness pound on that thing? It's just such an important lens, because if we're just getting the same return in our marketing investment, they're massive, we're tiny, you're just never going to close the gap, and you're going to remain tiny with no economies of scale, and you're just not going to last long as a business. So every marketing pound that we spent had to give us an amazing return. And then secondly, the other test that we used was, would or could another beer business do this thing? And if the answer was yes, like we needed to like pause, reflect, and up our thinking, because if one of our competitors can do it, by default, we're going to get the same return. So we don't sponsor sports teams because one of our competitors can do that. We're going to get a pound for pound return. So we like to do things that were bold, that were punchy, that were provocative, that our competitors simply couldn't do. And that enabled us to go from like 2 humans and 1 dog to the 14th most valuable beer brand on the planet, which is amazing thinking we used to kind of make beer in Martin's mum's garage.
Would you look at what Camden and or insert other brand were doing and then say, right, we're not going to do that? Or is it very much like an internal thing of this is what we're going to do? Because, I see there's so many categories that or brands we speak to where every brand does begin to look the same because they're all looking. Whereas, how did you say, right, this is what Camden's doing, we're going to push against that, or we're going to do our own thing and then take it to the market and see, is this actually getting our 10x return? Is this pound for pound? You know what I mean?
In terms of companies like kind of Camden Beaverton, I didn't even look what they were doing. I had no interest, and I thought if I spend too much time looking at what companies in my industry are doing, I'm going to end up doing things that are similar. And I think so many companies get so caught up in like competition. Like competition is a gift from God because it forces you to up your level. If you don't have competition, that's when it's going to be worried. I would always say to the team as well, like we've been copied almost every single day since we started. Like the time to be worried is when no one is copying you. Like people copying you is a sign that what you're doing has got commercial value and there's an opportunity there. So the time to be really scared and angry is like, why is no one copying me? And the answer is what you're doing isn't good enough. You need to up your games. Like any company that's out there, if nobody's copying you, be a little bit scared, be a little bit afraid. And like I think within your industry is the worst place to look for like innovation, inspiration, what you're doing. You've always got to find that kind of out with your industry. So I was always like zero concerned about what any other beer business was doing at all. Like, this is what we're going to do. This is what we believe in. This is how we're going to execute it. Like, they can do what they want. Like, this is our path. This is what we're going to do.
Espressos is sponsored by supply chain software gurus Unleashed. It talks your e-com and accounting software. It's helped islands cut admin time in half, get granular clarity on your margins, know where your stock is, don't miss availability. Brands like Candy Kittens, Tiny Rebel, and Trip all use Unleashed, and so should you.